This week's guest is presented to you by Bertarelli Cutlery. Marco Bertarelli at Bertarelli Cutlery has been in the knife sharpening business for decades. It's a family-owned business straight from the mother country of Italy. Marco is a dear friend, and they've been a partner with Illinois Recovery Center and offering second chance jobs for folks that are leaving treatment and looking for work. Please check them out at bertarellico.com. That's BERTARELLICO.com. And you can always find them in their retail store at 1927 Marconi Avenue on the Hill in St. Louis, Missouri. bertarellicutlery.com.
I'll react if I had to. Put some things in the past too, and don't let them distract you, but react if you have to. I'll react if I had to. Put some things in the past too, and don't let them distract you, but react if you have to. React if you have to, Don't know the time, just know that I'm, one of a kind, What's on your mind, We're hard to find, Beautiful mind, Still in my prime, Just know that I'm here.
What's up, everybody? Pound Off's Anonymous episode. I fucking lost count. 8 or 9.
Not a clue.
Season 2, 8 or 9 or 10. I don't know. It's rolling on. We got it's so funny. We got a fun show tonight. We're gonna do a FAQ episode. Frequently asked questions is what that stands for, Jim.
I had to look it up.
I was wondering.
Get questions all the time on this shit, so we're gonna tackle some questions we get frequently, and some dumb fucking questions that I got last night. I'll bring that up. But sitting in today, once again, Easy Eric Conley. Jacob Miller. I gotta say something.
Oh no, I thought I was gonna make some noises like Eric, but
and Jeff Allen's remote. He set this up, but his little guy's on spring break, so he's got an apron on and baking cookies or something or whatever his wife makes.
Mr. Mom.
So they're but he got us set up technically, so he's responsible for the magic that's happening. I'm excited to do this one. Jacob and I were floating around the idea. We've had some pretty hard-hitting guests recently, including Eric. A lot of content, lengthy content, and we want to have some shows that we just kind of fuck around and answer some questions and bullshit. More conversational. And I will say this, man. The last episode we did was fucking heavy, and it was brutal. And Tina shared her story about her daughter, and holy fuck, man. I've had people text me this week, dropped today, Wednesday, dropped on Monday, that they have to take it in chunks because it's so heavy. And it's so important, especially for parents. But I'm glad you weren't sitting in here, Eric, for that one, because I know your temper.
Yeah.
You would have fucking came unglued, listening, like watching her cry and talk about what people did to her kid.
Was it the bullying?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so we had to put a little warning on it because it'll get you right in the fucking soul, man. And she shared. She went to their house. Her and her husband were gonna fucking kill somebody, and people got in between it. And I really appreciate it. A lot of people, may not tell that part of the story because you talk about like sharing when you're at your lowest of low. It's kind of what we do here when we share our rock bottom stories on how bad it gets. But people resonate with that, man. It makes you human. Like everybody's thinking it. Did you want to kill these motherfuckers?
right.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I tried to.
Yeah. Being vulnerable and showing the true raw emotion.
Right. So if you guys haven't checked it out that are listening to this, do so. Take it in chunks. It's really important, especially if you're a parent. Even not. I mean, everybody's aunt and uncle or may have kids, but it also brings up what this online shit can do to people and how it's not fucking always real life. I heard this gal say a couple weeks ago that that social media and Facebook started off, and its whole mission statement was to connect people. And it's like now it's nothing but divide people. Like it's crazy how it's completely been flipped. You used to have like a .edu. It used to be a college thing. You had to have a .edu email address to sign up for it. And,
Showing your age there, bud. But
Oh, yeah, on Facebook, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
When this shit happened on MySpace, when she was talking about, filtered and like that top 10 list she said.
Oh yeah.
Like you could on MySpace rank your friends. So when one of them pissed you off, or you would like move them out of your list, and for the world to see. Like it's like Jesus.
Wow.
God. Anyway, we've had some heavy ones. Christina's story was crazy, really cool at the end. But boy, she went through it.
Yeah.
Close personal friend of yours.
Absolutely.
You, Jacob, Nathaniel have shared. I still haven't talked about mine because I like to put you fuckers on the spot. But we get tons of questions all day, every day. You guys do, working here all day, every day. So I think it's important. We'll fire off a couple FAQs, frequently asked questions.
Where's the questions coming from?
So we posed, we asked on the interwebs, speaking of social media, that we're talking about.
Post for it, so
really?
Get a couple from there.
A couple from there, a couple like frequently asked we found on the internet, and then some that I just wrote down that you don't think about. You get asked all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we're all kind of numbed out to it working in this field. What we see is maybe, I don't want to call it common sense, but what's, once again, frequently asked questions, what might be natural with our response, and we may know or have that answer to, or could elude or expand upon. Forget sometimes, like, my family, for example, they're not going to have the answers to those questions. They're not going to know, Anything that they do know is probably because of dialogue or context, through conversations over the years with, my addiction and my recovery.
We talk about it so much every day. It's like standard jargon shit to us.
Sure.
But just today, so Cam Jansen, former Blues enforcer, has done some work here at IRC. He's been through it. He's one of us, and he came out today and visited with clients, and you hear that. But beforehand, he was sitting with Jacob and I and asking questions about like what's naltrexone, what's Vivitrol, what's Suboxone. He took Suboxone, but it really hit me because it's his story to tell, but he was, there were some pain pills in the National Hockey League as he was fighting all across North America, and he said that he was given Suboxone and no education, like none. So he didn't know he just knew that it helped. And so he was asking, he got a crash course today, just asking questions, and it's stuff that like the back of your hand, but
it was more or less just, he means by just like team doctor, just kind of like, here, take this.
I don't know if it was a team doctor, but I think there was ways to get it when you're a professional athlete. Maybe more of a street doctor saying, if you go through it, because he's,
Well, there's a lot of I know a lot of people on Suboxone.
Right.
From like doctors that don't know nothing about Suboxone.
Yeah. What hit me was what people don't know about treatment is here, and I may not have known it because of the rigorous schedule we have here. It is education all day long of what your disease looks like, who you're impacting, what group what it is. It's all day long, and imagine just getting your symptom treated, which I think a lot of places have done before, and not educating on it. And it's even someone that's been through it had no idea. And it just struck me because I remember when we were first opening, I was like, I don't work here. I'm part of the team, but I don't work here. So I was like, I'm going to come out and hang out, see. And he goes, hold on a second, you fucking come out. Like, we got a schedule, dumbass. And I'm like, well, I know, but they have the clients. I would say the clients. They break at 11 and at 4, whatever.
Well, there's a frequently asked question right there.
Yeah.
What does rehab look like?
Right.
So a lot of, there's, kind of a misconception, like you said, is just a bunch of the homies just hanging out all day watching TV.
Playing ping pong.
Yeah. There's more than that. The reference I always use is it's like going to school. It's like going to college. The only difference is the topic is one's self.
Sure.
You're learning about yourself. But that is a common question, is what takes place during the day.
I see
also, we didn't want you on campus. So
I understand. Yeah.
Well, they think it's like a hardcore jail type setting too. I get that all the time. So
yeah. There you go. There's probably the both ends of the spectrum.
right.
We you see the commercials of like the Malibu Sands treatment center, and somebody's playing sand volleyball, and there's a wild stallion running in the background.
Right.
And that's just
You
not
show up there. There's no pool. There's no horse. So.
But I mean, even today, being Wednesday, is a family visitation day, right?
Right.
And pulling up, especially with the weather, is key. Everybody's outside. It's beautiful outside, and there's people sitting with loved ones, kids coming to see their probably parent or uncle, whatever it is. But it is to me, I looked at that and just smiled, because I think a lot of folks will call us and, I can't go to inpatient rehab, I have a kid. What are they going to think about me? And I see them out there now with families, and like giving them the greatest gift they could give them.
Right.
Is
Sure.
They're in here getting the help that they need so they can be the best version of themselves. So that was really cool to see today. And use your college analogy, I often say that IRC is like a JUCO, because the buildings are all spread out and people can really maximize the outside the time. I mean,
yeah, and that's what's unique about our campus is we usually inpatient or residential setting. Clients are eating, sleeping, learning under the same roof. Mm-hmm. So for ours, having different buildings, that's what's pretty unique and pretty cool, is it breaks up the monotony between where you learn and where you live per se. So really does give that campus feel. It's not the best when it's pouring down raining out, naturally, but
builds character.
Getting out and walking between the buildings, kind of a breath of fresh air, and it serves its purpose well. And once again, I only can speak on my experience when you're inpatient for 30 days, living, learning under the same roof. You kind of start to get cabin fever.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Get a little stir crazy. You know?
Yeah.
When we did last week or so's episode with Tina and Iggy, he came out and he was like, when they got here, there was like a bags tournament going on, and guys had a great time playing bags. He even talked about it. He's like, that was really, it just breaks. People have no idea. We think they all, sometimes I'm like, well, what do you mean you don't? Of course it's not like that. But so I'm glad that we're doing this. We can go through a lot of them that we got. Jacob posted online and got a couple good ones. I think the first one that comes to mind, Jacob, that want you to allude on, I think it was about medically assisted treatment.
Okay. Yeah.
Was that the question?
I'm trying to remember its exact wording, but I think it was something on the sense of like, how do you keep your personal view if it's different than like MAT treatment style that's out there? How do you like work if you have a different belief in it, or situations like that, which because I think very common.
And you and Jeff's not here tonight, but he's not one of us, so he really, what's great about when he's on the show is he'll ask those questions of people that aren't cool enough to be a fucking addict like us, that don't know. Fucking squares.
He'll ask the question kind of because he doesn't know.
Right.
So kind of naive to how things work behind the scenes, or some of those questions, which naive's probably not the best word, but he just doesn't know. And that's, in a lot of ways, that's a good thing, because it seems to be when you do know the answer to those questions, you've struggled with the disease of addiction.
And brought your whole family with you.
Right.
Yeah, but
so his questions are probably more along the lines of what the average mom, dad, brother, sister, husband, wife has.
Bingo. Mm-hmm. And so you guys in our group text were, because I think somebody sent us an email to the Panos Anonymous email address and was talking about different methodologies, I guess, on medically assisted treatment.
No, the email was something totally different.
No, I'm a
so
dumb fuck,
that's
man.
not. I think we can talk about. Let's talk about both.
Yeah,
of them.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the Facebook message was more on MAT treatment. The other method was more on like different types of recovery pathways that are out there, I guess you can call it. Which I just talked in group about this not too long ago. I'm a big fan of recovery programs. Love recovery programs. I'm a believer that every recovery program can work for every addict as long as you put the work in towards it.
Sure.
That being said, the beautiful side of recovery program, there's some for everybody.
Sure.
So no matter your beliefs, whatever it is, your style, there's something for you. 12 steps to completely science-based to completely spiritual-based, completely religious-based. There's one out there for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But the last fad that I've seen in the last like 4 or 5 years has been a lot of moderation use programs,
That's it. No,
which, in my opinion, will kill a drug addict. I don't believe in those. They're not good. But there are people that believe in that as a thing. I don't. That's where there's like some different. That's kind of more the email we're talking about.
Okay, so let me.
More on that type of stuff.
So let's go. Let's talk about the medically assisted treatment. Okay, the MAT. We say it like it's, but people don't know what we're talking about.
Sure.
Just so like the most common MAT is going to be like Suboxone. Would probably be the number one.
Right.
And talk about Suboxone.
So, yeah. So let me go through it. So like basically MAT, the biggest common ones you're going to see is Suboxone or Subutex. It's just buprenorphine and naltrexone mixed together. And then there's naltrexone and Vivitrol, which is Vivitrol is the shot form of naltrexone.
So I'm going to just kind of slow you down because I want to.
I'm going to break those down.
Good,
so.
good, okay, good. You're an expert in this, and that's where we want to talk to.
Yeah, so the best way it was ever explained to me was like early on in one of my first treatment stays, not my last treatment stay, but because I had that question too. Basically, the easiest way they described it to me, which I might mess up some words here, basically, but like heroin, fentanyl, pain pills, any opiates, they hit your opiate receptors at 100%. So it's just wide open, hits it all. You're high as a kite, whatever you're feeling it, 100%. Then buprenorphine.
Buprenorphine?
Yeah. Did I say that right?
You
Say it three times in a row.
Suboxone.
Suboxone.
What makes it like better for you is that it's a 50%. It hits your receptors at 50%, not 100. So there's no overdosing on it and stuff like that. It's very controlled.
So it's got that 50% is a ceiling. It won't go higher.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then naltrexone or Vivitrol, it's 0%.
That's what I took.
Yeah.
I was on naltrexone for a year.
You were?
Uh-huh.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I did it for a year, and like people are like, did it work? I'm like, I think so. I don't. But I was.
Well,
and
you didn't have a drink.
I did right, so it must have. But I also, I'm like, yeah, and getting off of it wasn't. I don't remember it being difficult. I just remember it being a conversation with my quote unquote board of directors. They have like people that I go to that will not bullshit me and have no ulterior motives. My mother, my doctor, pastor, those,
Sure.
and I was like, I'm going to make this decision. A little nervous because my mom's an RN and didn't want me getting in a car accident and then go to saw my leg off, and I feel it because that's a potential with an opioid blocker. You know, I mean, I'm being dramatic, but
Sure.
kind of
And
not.
I took Vivitrol for my first 90 days out of treatment.
Okay,
Too, so
it's same thing, but
yeah, it's a shot version of
and
it.
it's naltrexone is a pill a day, which puts a little bit of accountability on Chris.
Yeah, I wouldn't have took
Right.
the pill, so.
Right,
Shot lasts for like 28, 30
right.
days.
You get
so.
the shot and you're not getting high for a month, right?
Right. Yep. Ideally. But-
So Suboxone is part naltrexone.
Right. And like the reason I guess is talk about why like some people in recovery or some people dislike Suboxone because it's still an opioid. It's a narcotic opioid still. So it's not like you're still using an opioid when you're on it. So that's where there's like a lot of disclaimers in like the recovery community. Some are for it, some are against it, stuff like that. Is because it's still an opioid. I always tell people, because this is me and Eric were talking to a nurse just the other day about this too. If one of us at this table with zero tolerance right now to any opiates took a Suboxone, we're going to be high.
You said that today in the
Yeah.
office when we were talking with Cam. You
But
said that you did that like as a kid and got fucking nasty. sick.
Obliterated,
Yeah.
yeah. But if you have a tolerance for the medication, because you're used to being at that 100 hit, you don't get high off of it because your tolerance was already higher than what it is. So it kind of makes you feel normal. So it works really good for like detoxing or kind of having that maintenance, as they call it. So that's like long-term Suboxone use.
Right.
I can let you know my personal belief in it because I'm not anti-Suboxone. I'm If saved my life getting through detox. I definitely couldn't have done it without it. But I always look at MAT. I look at Vivitrol the same way as I took it. Look at the disease of addiction and addiction as a medical diagnosis, a medical thing we have to work on. So
Sure.
when I was in high school, I broke my knee. And when I broke my knee, I had to do two things. I had to do physical therapy for a long time, and I was on crutches to take weight off of my knee so it could heal. I look at MAT as a crutch during your treatment. It helps you take weight off your brain and off your disease.
Interesting. I like
so
that.
you can take in information like you should. But a lot of people just do that.
Yeah.
And that's when it's dangerous. Because if you do MAT and you're not doing it with a recovery program, treatment, stuff like that, your self-care, it's not going to do anything good for you. Because on crutches alone for a broken knee, your knee's not going to get healed right.
Right.
Same vice versa.
Should be supplemented with something else, or many other things.
And it's a temporary, like a bridge. You're saying, it's your personal belief not to be a long-term Suboxone
Yeah,
user.
no. Yeah, I think you should you should have an exit plan for it.
Sure.
That's a good way to put it. So if somebody asks like medically assisted treatment, because I always tell people if you are an alcoholic or hooked on benzos like Xanax, you have to be medically detoxed or you could die.
Right.
So that's part of medically assisted treatment, right? You can do it in the hospital or here, or is it?
A little bit. That's just medical detox.
So that's the difference. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
a little different, but I get where you're going. You can connect the dots there if you need
Right.
to.
So if people ask, because I think what I've learned from a lot of people that are opioid or heroin or fentanyl addicts that they're living every day not to get fucking sick again. By the time it's over, like we talked about it, I think on your story, that you're just living your day not to get sick. I think you've shared it, Eric. So
Sure.
it's a deterrent. If I go to treatment, am I going to get fucking sick? Am I going to go through this?
Right. And that's where it's Suboxone, like, at least from my experience with it and experience I've seen, obviously, in a lot of addicts, like, it does wonders for those withdrawal symptoms.
So that's
Fentanyl's another animal, just to be clear, than, like, heroin was when I was using it. Because there is a longer window between, like, the stop of fentanyl and taking Suboxone. So you got to wait a certain amount for your withdrawal symptoms to get bad enough. But, like, what we do, we bridge that through with comfort meds and different stuff like that before you can start buprenorphine. Because if you took an opiate, heroin, or fentanyl, took it, and 10 minutes later you took Suboxone,
What
you're
happens?
sick. You're extremely sick.
Yeah, but not just normally dope sick. It's called what?
It's called,
You've told me 100 times.
What's that?
Precipitated.
Precipitated withdrawals.
there we go.
Yeah.
And that's way worse.
It just puts you, like, in the most severe
instant.
part of the withdrawals right away.
Yeah.
It doesn't build up the bad. It's just bad.
You're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And it's all of a sudden, then it's on your
God.
ass. And now you're in it at that point, You just have to weather
Ride
the
it out.
storm.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Where it's no gradual, like if you wake up in the morning and you haven't gotten high, the level of discomfort is present. You're tired, you can't sleep, you're hungry, you can't eat, you got flu-like symptoms. Your restless legs are there. But when you enter into precip, it is all of that instantaneous. So you were, I don't want to say feeling okay before, you felt ill, dope sick,
Right.
but now it's on your ass.
God.
And that's what's good about, like, the medical detox side of it, though, because now you got a doctor and
Sure.
a team of nurses monitoring you so they know exactly when you can take it and you're
Right.
going to be okay. So
And the comfort meds obviously help as well. So there's it's when precipitated withdrawals, when you're in that, all of that is almost out the window.
right.
So once you get through the medical detox is really when the medically assisted treatment program
Yeah, that's
starts?
like where, like, you would choose, like, so I'm just use Suboxone as the example.
Okay.
So, like, you can choose, like, I just went detox with Suboxone. So you do, like, 7-10 days. They taper it, so you start on a dose and taper you off of it. Or there's, like, the maintenance route that people can choose, where when their detox is over, they stay on the Suboxone.
How does it? Let's use IRC as an example. Is it if I'm the client? Is it my choice? Or is it the doctor's choice? Is it a collaborative?
It'll be a discussion that takes place with
Yeah.
you and the doctor.
But ultimately, it's the client's choice.
Right.
Okay.
But the education is going to come from the professional medical staff, a.k.a. the doctor, nurse practitioner, the nurses.
Uh-huh.
Also, a lot of education comes from one addict speaking with another.
Right.
So, you know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, there's a lot of experience in the room with using fentanyl, heroin, any other drugs of choice when you're in detox, because everybody's in there for the same circumstances. So a lot of people are going to relay their experience. I think it's best practice to listen more attentively to the professionals.
Sure.
But, you know, it's, I think at the end of the day, too, with MAT, it's always good to add that it's a lifestyle change. It's not just a medication you take and then everything's,
right.
You know, that's addiction in itself is change one thing, that's everything.
Right.
So being prepared to not just stay on this medication to avoid being sick, but you want to get better. There's more to recovery than just putting down the drink or the drug.
Right.
It's a
Amen.
lifestyle change.
I get that a lot all the time since we opened, that just call Chris and he'll take care of it. And I'm like, or call Eric and he'll take care of it. I mean, you hear it all the time, and we're here for you, but you got to do the work.
Right.
And
Sure.
and we can point you in the right direction. We would send our kids to this facility, but you got to do the work. Yes, call me, call Eric, call Jacob. Well, but we're going to be real on the phone too. We're not going to bullshit and be like, yeah, we'll tuck you away it's like a car wash where you get a 30-day cleansing and you're out and brand new. This is
Right.
a starting point.
Like, we give people tools, they got to use the tools.
Amen.
And we can't
Absolutely.
force it.
Yep.
Right.
You know, so that's where, going back to like the MAT discussion, like MAT will work if you're working a program of some sorts for yourself. It doesn't work on its own. That's one of the biggest things I tell people. Like, if you're going to take Suboxone, your plans, I'm going to take this and I'm good, go back to my life and just live it, it will not work.
Sure.
You will fail that way. It's just been proven time and time again. But if you're on MAT and you're working a program and you're doing everything you're supposed to do that way, recovery-wise, you're going to have success.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing if you don't take any MAT. If you don't take MAT and you go out and you don't change anything, you're going to fail. It's not going to be good for you.
Sure.
You're going to make
Sure.
your road very difficult. But if you go work a program, it's going to be successful. The MATs there, just like I said earlier, kind of take some weight off of you. Because Vivitrol was amazing I don't know if I would have got through those first 90 days without it. And because it's just, I didn't have to worry about getting high because I knew I couldn't.
Right.
But I was working a recovery program very intensely at the same time. So that's what made me not be able to get off of it in the first place, because I was secured there. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it does. Next question I get a lot, especially since we've been talking about it since we opened outpatient, is what does IOP stand for, and what is it?
Jacob, you want to handle it?
I did all that talking, so I figured Eric wanted to say something.
Well, IOP,
It's your
intensive
baby.
outpatient.
There.
So, in other words, though, it's continuing. It's a step down from inpatient. Obviously, you know, we joke about it. Intensive outpatient seems to be a starting point for us addicts and alcoholics. Right? We always want to start there because I'll speak from my personal experience. It's less invasive.
Mm-hmm.
So when finally the discussion is held on, you know, Eric, you need help, or Jacob, Chris, you need help. You know, and if we're not entirely ready, you hear this a lot, is an individual finally lands at the point of, okay, I'll do outpatient.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, it's like starting in junior high if you're following the same, you know, examples of it being school. You know, you're behind on some of the education needed. So entering outpatient seems to be, once again, a less invasive way and allows us addicts, alcoholics to dip our toe in.
Sure.
Because we're not entirely ready
Right.
to commit or devote our entire lives to recovery. And it's fear-based. That's my opinion. So,
Agree with you.
but the outpatient seems to be, if you wrangled 100 addicts, alcoholics together, there's I would say a above majority, you know, even if it's 51% of individuals have started with outpatient before inpatient.
So have actually started. Because I would say 95 out of those 100 phone calls that I get ask if they can do outpatient first.
Sure.
Right.
And it's I always, sometimes if if I'm really taking the gloves off because it's gotten to that point where the person, it's in their best interest to hear it straight, I'm like, so are you saying like I'm a pussy because I had to go to inpatient? Are you like cutting the line here? Like why are you better than me? And then and they kind of, I look at it to starting at outpatient's a half fucking way surrender. Like I needed the full surrender. I'm in inpatient rehab. It's time to humble up.
And
go ahead, Jay.
So this is where like the trust the process comes in. We got to take our own self will out of it. Like
76ers.
there's a reason for detox. There's a reason for residential. Then there's a reason for outpatient. Eric always gets that example. Starting junior high is a perfect example.
Sure.
Like you need that bubble of inpatient to get healed, right? Get your brain on the right level. Learn the tools. Know how to use, like kind of like know what the function are and why you need them and when to use them. Then you go out to the real world, which you do see, like, if you don't do outpatient, the biggest amount of relapses happen within the first 30 days leaving inpatient.
Sure.
Because life starts hitting you in the face. IOP is that perfect bridge of, like, this is going on in my life today. I don't know how to handle it. And you're there with counselor, peers, therapist, and teach you how to use that tool now in real time and how to process through it. So you want that whole step down to it. One won't work without the other most of the time. So,
is there different types of outpatient?
well, yeah, there's going to be different models and everything too.
So
and there's
for IOP, is there different?
So technically, there's the PHP, partial hospitalization.
Explain that.
That's going to be very intense outpatient. So it's very similar to what we do inpatient wise, but you go home at the evening. So it's like 6 to 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, of groups, stuff like that. And then it step down would be the IOP.
Okay.
And then after that, there's general outpatient, which is usually once a week type of attendance.
But then you got a home group and you're
you should be
recovery
far
meetings.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what your recovery looks like. It's highly recommended, you supplement outpatient with some type of other, 12-step fellowship program. So that's what part of my road to recovery per se was outpatient, along with going to AA, meeting a day, home group, grabbing a absolutely mandatory to get a sponsor, go through the steps, 12 steps, and then at the end of that, as well as the most important part, sponsoring other individuals, but supplement that with intensive outpatient or it's highly recommended, and you throw in sober living as well. You're just giving yourself the most beneficial, or you're setting yourself up for the most success there that you can attain by doing everything, and that's part of what we're going to treatment for, is we're surrendering and changing everything from once upon a time to what we're investing now in order to attain that long-term sobriety.
I got so much out, and I still to this day, and whether it's going through life's other challenges that outside of addiction, is like a group learning and healing. There's something about not being alone and going through. Ashley and I did it. We have a foster and adoptive parent support group because we needed to, our families are great. Sure. If they haven't done it, they don't understand the system and how hard it is to fucking battle when you're a foster parent. So you surround yourself with other ones that have you don't even have to talk about it. You just all are in the same room and know I'm with people that for an hour a week get it.
That's been there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the if you know, you know. We've talked about it. There's groups for people that have lost a parent to cancer. There's people that are grieving spouse. And those groups, that group healing and learning, which is, fucking core to recovery, is I still to this day, didn't love it. I needed inpatient. And then the next step, my outpatient, I remember the groups, all the learning and hearing others' war stories and what ticks them off or makes them tick is I think what I mean to say. But it was so, I just don't know if I'd stay sober without it.
And then we very much have a brain that tells us we're unique. We're the only ones that deal with these issues, or at least a lot of mine too. I'll have fucked up thoughts where cravings. I'll just use that. My cravings would hit. And I always thought I was bad for having those, or I'm doing something so severely wrong.
Sure. Yep.
But when you're talking to another addict about it, you're like, well, yeah, that's normal. That
realize
happens.
that's common.
And you feel I still remember, I always tell my story with clients, my first ever meeting I went to, actually my second meeting was the first time I ever shared. And I shared at this meeting, and I was having a whole bunch of cravings, wanted to use, and I shared that at the meeting as like I'm a failure type of share, right? And I said, like, I know I'm Jacob, I'm an addict. I want to get high so bad today. I don't know what's wrong with me. And this guy next to me, he had like 6-7 years clean. He goes, well, welcome, man. That's why we're here. Yeah. And I just felt so humanized in that statement. Like, oh my God, like,
and you
I'm
had to
not
be
bad
fucking
for that,
feeling
right?
it
Yeah.
to say that, right? Like, I could imagine where you were, and to hear that had to be.
And that's where, like, that like-minded individuals. And then also, like, I always talk about, like, the severity of worry as well. So I use my mom. My mom's my number one support. She's not an addict. She's not in recovery. And there's going to be times where we have the thought of use. We'll pop in our head real quick. It just happens to us. Mm-hmm. And at least in like my recovery program, like they tell you to share that. If you think about using, tell somebody. Just snitch on yourself about it real quick. When that would happen to me, I would like call like my sponsor or somebody in recovery and tell them like, hey, thought about drinking today. Like, oh, you fucked up about it? Is it causing you any issues? Like, no, it was quick. It just happened. Not even dwelling on it, but I just want to tell somebody I had it. All right, cool. That's conversation over. Not a big deal, right? Yeah. I tell my mom that.
Sure.
She's worried sick for the next month or 2 months, checking my
Sleeping
eyes,
with one eye open.
freaking out, causing her all this worry on something that's just a normal little thought that's going to happen in my head.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So having those like-minded people you can share that with.
Right.
I think like crucial, that. Yeah.
Yeah, an outpatient opened here in January, right?
Yep.
It's humming. I mean, people are seeking it and need
it.
It's
set up too. Once again, when we first opened, we didn't have outpatient because we wanted to get laser focused with inpatient, but outpatient's always always
been the goal.
Yeah,
sure.
Always been the goal.
And I got a shit-eating grin right now because I hear some people saying, Eric, come on, why are we opening outpatient? And Eric says, hold the fuck on, just slow down. Let me deal with it.
Let's get this right.
I'm not saying I said that.
Yeah. It's just important that we could take that large bite and then work through some of the stuff, but it was important for us to get laser focused. Outpatient, in my personal belief, is the most important level of care. Also, along with that is sober living. Absolutely important. It was. I look back and it was treated like it was mandatory, and I thank God it was, because that set a firm foundation for me and my story. But outpatient, like Jacob mentioned earlier, is it allowed me to the accountability for a bunch of us addicts, alcoholics, to get together, see how life is going and progressing for everybody, and things are getting good in a hurry, but still having those feelings of, damn, I'm a piece of shit, or I still, I'm at that point in time almost 30 or turning 30, and congratulations, you just graduated rehab, right? So these guilty feelings, the remorse and shame that comes along with that, outpatient allowed me to be around my people and have that conversation and be raw with that real emotion. Also, life gets good in a hurry for a lot of us. So being able to take the good with the bad as well and process those emotions.
And I always look at it too, like kind of just explain the recovery treatment too, because basically I always look at inpatients where you get your disease in remission, right? You treat it, you get your disease in remission. It's not active.
Okay.
Outpatient's designed to get you a couple steps ahead of it, and then your recovery programs to make sure that lasts through your lifetime.
Got it.
So treatment's always going to be short-lived. You're not going to do treatment forever, right? You complete it. Mm-hmm. Recovery is that lifestyle change, that recovery program you choose. So that's where it keeps you well afterwards.
There's could be a lot of questions on sober living, so let's walk through sober living. What does a sober living house look like? And I know they come in different shapes and sizes, right? But
sure.
But what does a sober living house in general look like?
It's hard to describe it, right, without using that word in the definition, right? So sober, obviously no alcohol or drugs are permitted in the housing where you're at, but it's a safe living arrangement, a sober living arrangement for individuals to acclimate back to what we would call our normal lives.
Work.
So which means work, and it's the word that screams to me when I hear sober living is accountability.
That's what I was thinking.
So it depends on the house rules and such forth, but
so each house has a set of guidelines.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's
no, I mean, from the sober living that I've attended, there's one way, and that is a hard-nosed, firm accountability is the word. So meeting a day, chores, learn how to cook and clean yourself. All of these things which sound, once again, like that all of us know how to do these things, but in all reality, we've put them on the back burner for so many years in active addiction where there's more people than you would imagine that don't know how to start a washer, that don't know how to, fold their clothes that have been in the dryer, not just restarting the dryer 30 times.
Still struggle with that one, but
Yeah.
or just take a shower. Like I remember like taking a shower again. I had to like relearn that process. Because that's one thing about active addiction that a lot of us don't.
You still haven't learned to shave.
No. I got a compliment on this other day. But
There's a blind man.
active addiction led us to like very much animal level living.
Yeah,
we just lived basically with fight or flight mode constantly.
A lot of people said, that I used to live in like a clean. You were so clean, and then at the end, my house was a fucking pigsty.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, just shit everywhere. I'm sleeping on the couch, barely getting off it. It was awful.
Yeah. And my
Stinks.
sober living too, when I went in South Florida, it was very strict.
Yeah.
Starting the day, the first success, the first victory was making your bed. And there's a incredible speech by, I think it's Admiral McRaven out there. If anybody wants to Google it, and it talks about his victory, he included in that is making your bed and why you do it. So where
I can hear my old man right now.
Yeah, where I attended the sober living, the owner, his name is Hugh Dove, great guy, still amazing individual, and very much so a part of my story and my foundation that he helped me pour, but he was no nonsense. And it was, we didn't just flick the comforter over the sheets and then walk away. So there was the accountability of it for, curfew, and I learned how to save money in sober living.
Sure.
So that's something he did in a unique way that you don't hear it a lot of, and that we will eventually do at IRC, is teaching people how to be financially responsible.
Sure.
So, everybody, when they get clean and sober, tend to have issues with their license or driving record is not, the best.
Right.
So he showed individuals inside his sober living how to, take care of the essentials and pay your bills, and then set aside some money for the betterment of the future, how to open mail. I mean, that's a big ordeal. I don't know about you fellas, but opening mail, every time the mail came, somebody wanted a piece of what I definitely did not have. So,
such a good point, though. I mean, fuck.
Yeah,
Every creditor's coming everywhere.
Absolutely. So opening that and then being an adult about the situation, and then once again processing those thoughts. And I got, if we're in a sober living, I have Jacob next to me, or Joe Schmo that's going through similar circumstances, that can give feedback and what they did and how it feels and what they did to process those emotions. And you know what? It's overwhelming. Let's go to a meeting. So it's right there at your fingertips, and the accountability of being held responsible for working a program of recovery.
It's like a foundation of big and small victories, making your bed, opening your mail, putting gas in your fucking car.
Yep.
That start to stack up, and it's built on this foundation of being sober. So you start really thinking twice about fucking that up. And when if I relapse, all of this is going to come tumbling down again.
Another thing too is sharing.
Right.
Everything in sober living is about sharing. I got to share fucking space in the refrigerator. You know how it feels when you go grocery shopping and you just spent a couple $100, or let's just say $100. That's a lot of money, and then
on just food, no booze in there, right?
Right.
That's a
then
lot
you
of
go
food.
and you open the refrigerator later, and you're like, "Oh, I want a bowl of cereal," and you reach for your milk, and somebody in your house drank your milk. Like, that hurts. That cuts deep, and I assure you,
come out of character.
Yeah, it tends to have you, familiarize yourself with those all too familiar emotions that we experience in active addiction.
How long do you recommend, or do you typically see somebody stay in a sober living environment?
I would say for a year.
Yeah.
It's ideal.
That was my story. 1 year.
That's what I hear is do it for a year.
But
Get
you
around the
asked
sun.
how long would you recommend, or how long?
Both.
Yeah, recommend at a minimum 6 months, but I would recommend a year.
Okay.
But
Year
a lot
should
of
be the
people,
goal.
a lot of people you hear 90 days to 6 months. I don't think that's sufficient enough.
No, so I say year's best. Over 6 months at least.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and then once you make the commitment, honoring the commitment in the beginning.
My sponsor used to do all like, so my sponsor never put like early on, never put like, because like one of the biggest ones is like relationships and recovery. At least in like the 12-step world, they always say like, wait a year before you get in a relationship.
You mean like a fucking relationship?
Like a relationship, like boyfriend, girlfriend.
Right.
Whatever your
This,
significant other is.
this
you
is
know.
we're talking about fucking heroin and fentanyl and boof and Molly.
I'm not talking about like hooking up with people. I'm
Well-
talking about a relationship with another human.
Well, okay. How long
Fucking
do you
sicko.
start fucking?
I don't know. Ask your sponsor. That's for him.
Yeah.
But so on a relationship, Chris, not just fucking.
It's the same thing.
They say wait a year and
Edit that out.
Yeah.
We don't edit. No, but
Talk to your therapist.
when
Like,
you say
yeah, it's the same
relationship,
thing, you know. But
pricks, I thought being in a relationship with a friend with
no, so a significant
yes.
other.
Okay.
They say wait a year. My sponsor will be like,
I'm
well,
the fucking church boy over here, and you guys are afraid to say
Oh,
the
yeah.
word fuck.
Okay, but
Yeah. Don't stop.
So my
we
sponsor
already had that conversation.
My sponsor always put recovery timeline on it, so you can have that when you get your steps done. He didn't say a year. Get your steps done.
Okay, that's
Once you
fair.
get your steps done, then you can do a relationship,
And
you
we're
know.
kidding stuff, but people, I've heard horror stories about people hooking up in fucking rehab or hooking up
yeah.
here because we've said
There
it
you
a
have
thousand times. And
None of that takes
Are
place
you
here.
married? But we've said it all. Like, remember when we were first opening about you got to be careful with people start getting their feelings back, and you worry about what do they call it, the 13th stepper, right? So that's a big one. Is
And what was always explained to me too, like a good, I guess, analogy or way to look at like relationships in general, definitely because in early recovery, you got to put 100% in. We talked about this multiple times
Absolutely.
here. It takes all your effort to fix yourself in the beginning.
right.
Well, if you want a healthy relationship at the same time, you have to invest yourself into that to be healthy. Early recovery, you don't have that to invest. So if you get in a relationship, it's going to be toxic because you can't give
Yeah.
it what it needs to be a healthy relationship, or your recovery is going to suffer because you're giving it to the relationship and not your recovery now. So therefore, the relationship's not going to work out either. So that's like kind of where my sponsor looked at. It's like, well, once you get your steps done, you should be, your investment into yourself should be good. You should be able to invest
It's a good
something else
benchmark.
out. I liked it that way because at least in NA, like the program I do, it takes a while to work your steps. A little bit faster than, slower, than like AA. But
Yeah.
it was a good benchmark of
You
like,
just had a lot of amends to make.
and it also like, it gives you some motivation to get your steps done too. It's not
Right.
dilly dally because
You want to get laid?
Eric, 12-step guy, like you always see people, they get to that 4th and 5th and they just
They
stop
don't-
working
yeah.
steps.
Yeah.
Well, then
Did
this
you
gave
just,
motivation
did you just
too.
call Eric out?
On what?
I know. I thought you just called him out. Or
No, he
something.
just understands 12-step program.
Look at us with the fucking the junkie candy.
Gummy bears. That's
how
what
we-
happens.
Sorry, they're
when
out
you
of
don't
Swedish
eat lunch.
That's how he bribed Eric to get on. Right?
I promised him Swedish fish.
That's what happens when you skip lunch.
Tell me you're a heroin addict without telling me you're a heroin addict. What do you want from the gas station? Swedish fish. Some sour patch. Oh man, you can't keep them in stock.
You going back to the relationship though, and I'm nobody's role model for that because I broke the law, the rules. Me and Molly did, but theoretically, you got nothing. You can't provide anything at that point in
Right.
time, right? You're learning how to love yourself. So how do you love something else? And like
Sure.
Jacob said, if you're going to spend that time loving something else, then it's going to pull from who you should be spending the most time loving. Once again, is yourself. So, and it redirects your focus elsewhere where, it's, I'm sure we can all agree that it's easier to fix you. I do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. So, if,
And then
go ahead, Jacob.
I kind of brain fart there, but totally forgot what I was going to say. So,
Yeah, well,
okay. So another way I always looked at it too is like in early recovery, I did this a lot to like kind of motivate me to be better in a relationship. Like when I was in like my first year of recovery, I was a bum. Had a shitty car, I had an air mattress for the first like 6 months, and I still remember like thinking like, would I want to be with a girl that would be with a guy like me right now?
Right.
Like I got nothing going for me at this moment.
Right.
Yeah,
So is that
makes me
that's not
laugh.
going to be so?
Some girlfriends of mine had me like wanting to fill out a Match.com and an eHarmony profile, and I'm like, what am I supposed to put? Because it says like one of the questions is, do you
Unemployed.
drink? Sometimes, always, or never. And I'm like, if you put never, that's a fucking red flag. If you put like a
Always,
lot, right?
yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
well, what do I put? Yeah, I just got out of rehab. Want to go get a coffee?
So looking at it that way, which also like for me at least, it motivates me to be better.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, how do I get to a level of a person of getting a girl that actually would want a guy like me, type of thing?
Yeah, it was. In all seriousness, it was my first, I guess, relationship. Because and I told the story. I was sent the fucking first therapist. I had flowers, and she boundaried me. But I think
see that.
I think she had the house for me. No, she was just too strong boundaries. It was probably 2 years, 18 months, maybe a year and a half that I, felt confident enough that I was going to be able to contribute maybe to a relationship. And I don't mean just physically, okay,
A
Jacob?
fucking relationship.
But I don't want to say too much because, my wife does listen to this. And
Thanks for the
speaking
sto-
of, I got a
thanks for
great,
the share, Chris.
great
Yeah, thanks for the share.
got
Keep coming back,
a
bud.
got a story. I got a question texted to me from someone, and I'm going to read it because I think it's a good one. It's maybe a little clinical. Just kidding. It's the transition from treatment back to home seems like a tough one sometimes for the family as well as the person in recovery. What are some specific things spouses, partners, partners? That's kind of clinical. What are some specific things spouses, partners, family members can do to support their loved one in early recovery?
Tell them to go to sober living. Next question.
Which
You're not a
sober-
clinician.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to say that like sober living's not just for people that are not married. Like you
Right.
see, we've had clients, own a home, have a family, and still do sober
Really?
living.
That's a great
so
point.
It's really much like this isn't just for people that don't have a house
Right.
and have.
But
don't have
there's
a
that
family.
misconception it is.
Right.
There's a
So-
misconception. And a common rebuttal to that is, well, Jacob, I'm not going to sober living because I got a house. Who would pay for sober living and while I still pay my mortgage?
Someone that wants to be sober. That's
You got it. You
Someone that
got
wants it will do whatever it takes to get sober.
Well, we lose sight of what we're. I mean, with that analogy, why would you pay for heroin? When you got your house to pay for. Like you can't. You got to step aside, and most of the time we are in our own way and taking the recommendations. Like recovery is not having. You have to be all in to be successful. That's why so many times people come back is because they're still taking their will back on certain, let's call them categories of our recovery. It's like, okay, yeah, no, I'll get a sponsor and I'll go to these meetings, but no way, I'm not living in sober living.
And then
I worry about when people. One of the questions we get a lot is, "Can I have my cell phone there?" And then if that's a make or break for you to go to treatment, then I'm going to worry about you.
Should.
Because
yeah, absolutely. You should be worried.
Yeah, I mean, and we really technically don't allow cell phone on you in IRC. And
No,
Absolutely not.
and no treatment center should. And there's people
Well,
have
I do.
unique situations where it's professionally they got to work and pay bills, and if there's an allotted time during free time, which we allow for certain
Right.
scenarios, if it makes sense, but it's circumstantial. But to have your cell phone on you all day,
get out of here.
that's ludicrous.
You're going to
It
be
really
in bed
is.
fucking texting God
Yeah.
knows who.
Yeah.
Facebook triggers. I mean,
It's just dangerous for the other individuals around you as well as yourself, and you're not focused on the right things. One of the greatest things that ever happened to me is that I was on Facebook and I got hacked, and I could never get back into my account. Now, it was, I think, let's call it the first year of my sobriety, but, God does for me what I can't do for myself.
Amen.
So I tried to resolve the issue and go through Facebook and get my account back, but I never got it back. And because I'm a good alcoholic, I was spiteful, and I said, well, fuck you, Facebook. I don't need you. And you know what? It was one of the best, I guess you call it a decision.
what a freedom.
Or, one of the greatest things ever given from the big guy upstairs was the fact that I hopped off all social media for almost, 8 years?
I would say
So
you only got on
Yeah.
to help be
IRC.
available for people that need treatment and
Yeah.
talk about the recovery center.
Yeah, and it served its purpose, because if you think about how many times we pull our cell phone out during the day, jump on Facebook, just scroll a little bit, or if you start your day, in the bathroom in the morning looking at
Getting them
Facebook
likes.
or laying in bed and going through that, all that amount of time. And you can use that when early in recovery, a common thing asked was, well, how am I going to have time to hit a meeting after I work all day? Well, if you hop off Facebook, I certainly know that that's cumulative, all them little periods of the day where you check your Facebook. If you add them up, you can damn sure fit in a 60-minute meeting.
There's a doom scrolling, they call it now. And it's almost, it's fucking addicting. There's going to be
What's it called? Doom
scrolling, yeah. You just sit there and fucking go through reels and compare yourself to this person and try to, you see it's we participate in it to spread the message, and there's good uses for it, and then there's
bad,
addictive, and it's very addictive too.
And then
absolutely.
with like your cell phones too, like the people that you connect through on like social media, all the numbers you have in your phone are not like, they're not going to be people that
potty break.
they're not going to be the people that you have that like you really need in your life in this moment. They're not your main support people. It's everybody.
Yeah.
So when you take that cell phone out and you say, write some numbers down. Who do you need? You write down the most important ones you need, and those are the people that you should talk to.
I still have the handwritten. So I was allowed to receive calls, and it was like, I was talking about this with a client today. Where else can you go now and get a fucking break from your phone?
Right. Yeah.
Nowhere. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe prison, but maybe.
I do want to circle back to like the original question here.
No,
too.
yeah, absolutely.
Because sober living obviously is what we support for all individuals to do, but let's be real.
Right.
Majority of the people with families and houses, they're not going to.
And I don't know if you've shared it on here, but you've shared it with me personally about kind of reentry to going to your mom's and some having communication, right, is key.
Right. So that's like where I'll do what IRC does, because we have a lot of individuals that aren't going to go to sober living.
Right.
Is that before they leave our treatment, they sit down with one of our clinicians, family and them, and they say, this is what returning home looks like.
This picked up the flush. That's pretty good. This is good
And
technology.
we call that a return to home contract is what we call it. So they sit down with a mediate
It's another flush.
with a therapist, and the family and that addict, they talk about, well, this is what's going to look like when I get home. This is how you're going to hold me accountable. These are the rules I'm going to follow. These are rules I'm not going to follow.
Sure.
Right? This is what it's going to look like. And they hash all that out before they return to home.
So is that part of the family program?
Yeah. So Kevin Button,
Yeah.
which we've had on, he kind of guides that with all does it in a group,
You
and
feel
he does
better?
it individually.
I feel better.
Jacob was talking about the return to home contract.
Yeah. So like when people aren't going to go to sober living, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of them are not. So before they leave here, we make sure they're set up for what does returning home look like. What are the rules you're going to follow? What are the accountability? What are your giveaways that you are struggling, and what are giveaways that you're not?
Sure.
So if I'm isolating, that's a red flag. That's when my family needs to say something. And when you're doing it in treatment, you already hash all that out. Because when you don't do that and you just go home, and now your wife or parents or whoever it is you're going back home with, are going to be like extremely overboarding.
Sure.
They're worried. They're scared.
yeah.
They call it a helicopter type of parent.
Here's your tracker, you know what I mean?
Right.
And stuff like that. And that's going to make people, if they didn't already have this discussion, kind of bug out. And let's be real, I'll use me. I've relapsed before because my mom asked me if I was high. Because that's the addict in me, like, oh, you think I'm high? You think I'm going to fail? Might as well just
Makes sense.
fail
Go
anyhow.
get high, yeah.
Makes sense.
Kind of
It's
crybaby.
early. It's the stinking thinking.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
let's have that all worked out, figured out before you
Uh-huh.
leave treatment and go home.
Yeah.
I think that's. I always say that it's one of, if not the thing that sets us apart, is that family program here. I've heard. I mean, that's what I think, but I hear so much from alumni and people, family of alumni.
We've talked about it, and it's. I hate to say it this way, but oftentimes the family is just as sick as the individual struggling with the disease of addiction.
Right.
And once again, they don't have the escape we get, and they are in the thick of it when we're doing our ripping and running out there and putting them through shit. They don't have their
Right.
escape. So
Which, talk about support groups, I'm a big believer. Like, if you're a family member of an addict, go to Al-Anon.
Sure.
Find some, because you need like-minded people as much as the addict does.
I make
too.
that mistake a lot when a family member calls us or calls me personally, that I almost assume they've already known, and 9 times out of 10 I'm like, have you heard of Al-Anon? And they say no.
Most of them don't.
Have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
My mom went.
And when you say, my mom did Smart Recovery, Family and Friends, like Al-Anon,
Sure.
Smart Recovery, that program's way. That saved my mom's life. Like, my mom carried so much so much stress and anxiety, guilt, so much stuff over me.
Yeah.
And when she would share that too with like her friends, they would give her advice of like, well, just quit talking to them, quit giving them money, quit, you know, whatever it is, right? Kick them out, whatever they're telling them to do.
God.
But they didn't understand. My mom always felt so judged or like shamed by her friends because they just didn't know. But when she started talking to other moms
They're
of
going through
addicts,
the same fucking storm.
she no longer felt judged by it. She felt like
Sure.
the mom would be like, oh, I went through that same exact thing, right? This is how I worked it out with my kid
Right.
and helped him. And this is what I had to deal with in that process. This is how I rode that roller coaster to get through it.
Sure.
So, like, family members need just as much as that like-minded people for help as the
And
addict does.
I always go back to just knowledge is power. You learn a lot from others. You learn that you're not alone, that you're not isolated.
And experience speaks volume. So,
Yeah.
So good question, Ash. My baby.
I figured it came from a clinician.
Yeah, I know. Here's a good one I got yesterday. Just yesterday, I got a text from, this is from Brett from Swansea, 41, a little overweight. Have you ever heard of someone using crystal meth to get sober from alcohol? And I mean, I'm sure somebody might tell you that that's why they're using meth.
Yeah, while we laugh at that today, right? My thoughts on getting off heroin when I was in active addiction was taking Suboxone and then Ritalin.
right.
You know, and that
Interesting.
because in my brain it was just physically I needed to get better so I can go to work and continue on with life, right? Completely missed the point of the disease being a disease of the mind. So, and my thoughts was, if I can overcome the physical ramifications that I was experiencing during withdrawals, if I can overcome them, then I would be good. And Ritalin, for obvious reasons, a little pep in my step. And it didn't help I was snorting it either. But
Didn't boof it, did you?
no, it didn't boof it.
Liar.
But, the Suboxone,
You
for
just
obvious
kind of
reasons.
you just kind of did that. Yeah, like,
I got a little excited. You know?
like a little shimmy, a little twitch.
And for anybody that listen to my story, like, I detox off alcohol with heroin. You
So
know?
it's funny. So I was in our group text. I'm like, yeah. So this is one of the questions that I got, and Jacob said, yeah, I quit drinking. I used heroin to stop drinking alcohol.
Yeah, poor Jeff, you know, that group. So many times I've said, don't Google what that is, Jeff. You know?
Yeah. He
Don't
gets
look up
he
movies,
gets
you
a
know?
crash course education.
But it don't work. You know, and I know a lot of people. I know, like, I personally have met people that were like quitting heroin and tried to use meth.
Yeah.
To come off of it, or alcohol, or
We sound silly, but how many people will say? In fact, there was a guy I know that I picked up to go to a baseball game that wasn't wanting to do heroin anymore, but I'm just going to drink.
It's alcohol, yeah.
And that seems because alcohol is illegal.
Absolutely,
Everywhere out there, you can buy it at a gas station, liquor store.
And
It
this
seems
is,
like, okay, well, I'm just going to drink.
In our mind, we're taking the lesser of the two evils and
Right.
trying to justify
Exactly.
it.
Sure, that's
so
it.
I'm trying to say, Chris, I'm not shooting heroin.
right.
Right?
And
I
that's what
drank too much today.
Pat me on the
Big
back.
ordeal,
And our brain
right?
does that too, because I always tell, like, because like in my recovery, I've craved heroin 6-7 times probably in the last 8 years. I've craved like weed and alcohol 1,000,000 times, because my brain automatically categorizes it as like a lesser tier substance
Sure.
than heroin, right? And the problem is, I'm not a heroin addict. I'm an addict.
Got it.
It don't matter what substance I put in my body. If it's mind altering and it gives me that dopamine spike, I will abuse it and it will self-sabotage me to death. You know what I mean?
There's the cunning aspect of the disease,
Right,
right?
exactly.
It comes to you in the form of like, hey, yeah.
Just weed.
It's just weed, right? That's we hear it all the time, cunning, baffling, and powerful. So next thing you know, my brain rationalizes it. And it comes to me in my own tone of voice,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that in itself sounds amazing because I love me some me, right?
Sure.
and it's so part of the disease, and it tries to say that, but it's not heroin.
And that's one thing that I heavily, because I do a couple groups here, and that's one of the groups I heavily push on is that don't no longer say that I have a drinking problem, or I have a heroin problem, or a meth problem, or a pill problem, whatever it is. I have a drug problem. Yeah. And even you want to take that even a step further, because I'll be honest with you, I can justify getting high. My brain, it's sick. If it's sick enough, it will make getting high sound like a good idea.
Sure.
To yourself, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's what you got to follow it up, too, with, like, for me, getting high to me is my daughter not having a dad. Getting high to me is me robbing my mother and breaking her trust again, or not being a good worker, or not being, there for like my good brother, good husband, whatever it is. So that's not, so I no longer in my brain allow myself to say, like, I want to get high. I have to justify, I want my daughter not to have a dad. I can't find a reason for
and
that.
that's
That
not
makes
fucking
sense.
drama. That's real shit.
Absolutely.
But our brain wants us to be like, it's just weed.
Right.
But it's not just weed. It's my daughter not having a dad.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that equals. And that's how we have to make our brain trained to look at it that way. Because our brain will try to trick us and make it look at it different. And that's what we were talking about earlier when it comes to like those other recovery programs and the different approach that are not abstinence-based.
That are moderation.
That's why it's dangerous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if I smoke weed right now, I already know, I've done it in my past. I will self-sabotage and I'll throw everything out the window so quickly.
Slippery slope.
There was a celebrity that struggled in and out of addiction. Fucking hot gal. I forget what her name. Demi Lovato.
Yeah.
Hottie.
California sober.
But then to talk about moderation and I think people think California sober. They think they just smoke weed, don't
smoke weed or drink. That's usually
no, yeah. And I hear it as when I hear it, it's maybe they know that Chris is the fucking drunk. Like they are always using it as just weed or THC.
Yeah.
No, nothing else. That's their version. I thought she was saying drink a little, smoke a little, snort a little type shit. Just don't do it a lot.
The thing is, she's actually, if you look into her interviews nowadays, she believes 100% abstinence.
Really? So
she tried it that way.
Yeah, the fucked up thing is that there's a lot of news and everybody knows about her California sober sayings and how the big old fad with it, and nobody talks about the abstinence approach she takes now.
She can get on.
Right.
We have her on.
Call her.
Well. She's still hot. She's a nice gal, I'm sure. I mean to be respectful. Anyway, sure yeah. But there are people out there, in all seriousness. So real quick, there's people out there that are drinking, like I was drinking, and they're going to try it 100 times to say, I'm just not going to do shots. Right. I'm just not going to do shots. No more Rumpelman. No more whiskey. I'm just going to drink
beer for me.
Just beer.
Yeah.
Sure. And that lasts for about 10 fucking minutes.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Because you hear those stories too of people. Like, oh, this person, like, they just smoke weed now. They were heroin active. They're doing really good in life. My brain always goes for now.
For now.
Yeah.
Like, let's see how.
Well, it's common too. We see it enough. Alcohol. Let's use that as an example. Okay, Chris, you're starting to get out of hand. There's repercussions from your drinking. You got pulled over, DUI, or jail, or you're getting reprimanded at work or home. You get into fights with your loved one. All of that stuff. Then you say, okay, I can't drink vodka anymore. Right. So then you may or may not switch to a different hard liquor, right? Because now you're like, okay, but
it's just
no shots, like you said. It's not, but it's the vodka that gets me every time. So you'll switch to mixed drinks of, rum and Coke or something like that. And then after that time, you try that, and then there's ramifications from that. Then you're like, okay, no more hard liquor.
Right.
Then you get knocked down to the beer, and then after that, it's like, okay, maybe not as much beer, until ultimately you land in the same spot that we all land at, and it's like, okay, maybe it's alcohol in general.
It's like, because I was drinking whiskey so much that beer wasn't doing it for me, so I could not possibly just have a beer diet because it wasn't going to get me where I needed to fucking go.
Sure.
So what am I going to do? Give me a shot. I know I said I'm off shots, but just one.
Right.
Get the fuck out of here.
And you see, like, there's people that have it down to like, I'll take a shot every 2.8 hours, and then that's when I get a shot.
I'm going to here's a message for all of you that are doing that right now. Call us.
Yeah, you don't have to live like that anymore.
Yeah.
It's so fucking exhausting doing that. Oh, yeah. And if you're doing that, then there might be a problem.
Sure.
Maybe. Or there probably is a problem. So couple more. We got. I don't think we're too long.
We're at like an hour and 8 minutes.
Oh,
right
that's good. Yeah, we're not going to go 2 tonight because I got an FAQ. Got some shit last night. I was like, why are you podcast 2 hours long? And I said, listen, woman. I just said, I said, actually, a different Ashley said it, a friend of ours in core group. Oops, I'm supposed to say there. That's confidential. No, I had a good conversation with her, and we do go long. It's not just because I love the sound of my own voice, but we do it once a week. And when we have a guest on, I don't ever want to be the guy I was going to say have the balls, but I don't ever want to have the gall to, like, interrupt someone pouring it the fuck out. And, like last week, I just shut the fuck up and let Tina talk, man.
And when you're sharing your story, like, an hour is not long enough to tell your story. And then when you do have to rush like something like that into like a time frame, there's so much important little details that you miss out. Those little details can be something that saves somebody's life as well.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So like you don't want to put a barrier on how long somebody can talk for or what they have to say.
Yeah. It's not my fault you have ADHD.
Right.
Listen, just fucking listen.
You have a
Pack a lunch.
You got a week in between episodes. You have plenty of time to listen to it.
So in efforts of trying to keep this under 2 hours, I there's a couple of things I definitely want to hit on. You ain't got anywhere to be. You're I think your wife clock in.
Go ahead.
Yeah. She's here.
I still got work to do.
Oh, that's right. Go back. So we talked about the moderation, right? And are there? I don't want to. I don't mean maybe it is confusing, but moderation and self-harm, or not self-harm. Fuck, what's wrong?
It's the same thing, really.
Harm reduction.
Harm reduction. Sorry. Fuck, what's wrong with me? But that. So
Did you say it's the same thing?
Right. So good
Moderation
point.
is self-harm.
What are your is moderation and harm reduction the same thing?
You could look at it that way, I guess, but harm reduction is like one of those. I don't know, it's a touchy subject.
Explain.
I'm
Dumb
trying
it
to do
down
the
for
word.
people.
Well, harm reduction is, I guess, like the model that is out there to basically keep an addict alive, which 100% support that model.
Sure.
Right? And the weird, like, blurry line that I see, right? I'll only speak from my view. Eric or you guys might have a different opinion, but, like, harm reduction, in my opinion, is designed to get somebody to treatment. So, in my opinion, once somebody walks into our doors, there's no more harm reduction.
Okay.
We're in treatment mode now. We're
Got
getting
it.
better. We're going to get past this. But there's a lot of approaches out there now that took harm reduction and combined it with treatment. So they're teaching moderation use. And in my, like, I don't know if it's my ego or just my solid belief in what recovery is that when you tell somebody they can use in moderation, it's almost saying, like, I don't believe you can be abstinent and clean. And I just don't.
I feel like it's
that,
a give
You know
up.
what I mean? Yeah.
And pardon me if I'm offending out the harm reduction advocates out there. I get it. I'm uneducated in it. But to that point, it feels like you're saying to someone, you can't do it. And God, I've been there with some people but I've seen them. Then those people, the ones that shock the shit out of me.
Right. And that's why like, harm reduction, I think, is very important pre-treatment. Like, I like the programs that are out there. Most of them. Some I disagree with. Some
Can
I
you
agree,
can you
but-
really dumb it down for us? What is harm reduction look
So,
like
like-
on the streets?
So, like, harm reduction can go from, like,
Shooting galleries?
it could be like safe, like clean needle exchanges, so safe using spots. Not
Which
the
is
biggest-
like what we call a shooting gallery?
yeah,
That's a
and then
form
but then there's
of
also
it.
like community-based programs where like you can go and get resources and information and stuff like that.
What's a place in Pennsylvania, the street that's just fucking zombied out? We talked about.
I don't know the name of
It's
it.
outside of Philly.
I'm not sure.
Nathaniel was talking about it when I think it wasn't your wedding, but I mean, there's a street where, and outside of Philly, that's just like fucking zombie row. People
Right.
are just fucking hunched over,
There's
high
cities all
needles.
over this country that have
Well,
a
sure,
street
so-
just
Yeah.
like that. So
Skid Row.
Is that a form of?
it
Am
could
I
be
not
because
getting arrested?
harm reduction can also go in the sense of like, like people not getting in trouble for
Kensington?
use, stuff like that. But then but good like harm reduction one that's out there was the Good Samaritan law that came out. That was formed by harm reduction specialists.
Okay.
That like pre that like if
Explain
you're-
what that is.
So, yeah, so if you're overdosing in my car and I called the police like 911 to come save you, I could catch charges. right? If I had drugs on me or just being in that area, like you catch a charge. The Good Samaritan law made it where if I called 911 for them to come help you, I won't catch any charges for anything, which is harm reduction, and it's that's a great form of it.
Literally,
right?
tangibly
That's saving
saves
millions of lives with that.
And
which
that's is that a nationwide thing?
I believe so.
I hope
say
so.
yes. So,
God, I hope so.
So
Yeah,
like
I'm
that's
not
a great
100%
form of harm
on it.
reduction. And then there's like harm reduction where I say people take it to the extreme. Like I always like the biggest one, like the easiest one to look at, the one I disagree with the most is word exchange. I don't believe in word exchange. That's like saying instead of saying relapse, say return to use. Don't call somebody an addict. You got to say something like it's a recovering addict, or whatever it is, right? I believe if we start changing words, those new words now get stignified, right? In 5 years from now, you can't say return to use anymore because it's filled with guilt and shame and stuff like that. And I'm a strong believer in guilt and shame. I have yet to meet an addict that got clean that did not have guilt and shame.
That's a good point.
And that was a form of how they got to the rock bottom,
Sure.
which most people guarantee follow it with like you need a rock bottom. You need that despair. You need that that hard hit. And if we keep making that, we take away that guilt and shame, you're not motivating somebody to get better. But harm reduction, I believe, needs to be designed more for that person has guilt and shame. How do you guide them to get better, right? How do we get them in more treatment options? How do we get them the resources they need to get clean? Not just, here's a clean needle.
I like what you're saying. I think, I mean, you don't want, people are going to use, and there's cleaner equipment that's going to not kill you. And with the poison on the street today, if it's okay, you're alive, let's get you need to get the treatment. Not, let's get the treatment as part, we'll just maintenance use. It's saying you can't do it, and you can.
Right, and that's where I get, like, that's where I look at it. Like once somebody walks into IRC, that person 100% can get clean. They walk into any treatment center though. Like that's not just IRC is the greatest. That's more of, once you get the treatment, you no longer need harm reduction. The harm is done. Now it's time to get well. Like it's like the whole like meet them where they're at model. Well, you meet them there, but you don't want to keep them there.
Okay.
You want to progress them and make them get better, and that's the goal. And once I tell somebody like, oh, well, you can only get this good, you can't get better than that. I don't believe in that model. I believe every addict can reach that full potential. So
I'm telling you, there's a lot of people out there that, and I'm probably one. My circle of people thought would never stop drinking ever. And we defy the odds. So if I always say if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way. I haven't seen it. I mean, it's the greatest gift to be a part of an organization like this that gets a front line at people transforming their lives. And we talk about it every time. I was saying it a couple weeks ago to somebody that was getting ready to, it was a couple Saturdays ago, I'm leaving Monday. I'm like, make sure you look at your check-in picture.
right,
I mean, just fucking insane what happens in 20 to 30 days.
That kind of ties back into the harm reduction. Why there's some thoughts that it's present to begin with, and that simplified is just to keep someone alive,
right,
to get them to the destination of, okay, now whatever has happened in that, some people say you hit rock bottom, some people say the pain's got great enough, to get them to that point where now they're all in, right? So just simplified, keep someone alive and around long enough to where now it's whatever divine intervention, call it whatever it is, to where now it's, okay, now I'm all in with recovery.
right.
And then is where I think what you're alluding to, Jacob, then it's like, okay, harm reduction served its role.
Right.
Now it's time for recovery. All in with recovery.
Right.
And you no longer need that whatever scenario or medication was before, And there's circumstances, overall belief in mine is by any means necessary to get to that point. So, in my story, I think back, in 2014 when I checked into a first program, then once again, my sobriety date's October 27th, 2016. If harm reduction was as prevalent as it is now back then, and I tried to, which is difficult to try to tap into my emotions when checking into a program, being that it just came from out there ripping and running, I probably would have taken whatever I believed was easier for myself.
Right.
And I probably would have elected to go that route. Sitting here today, I'm grateful I didn't, but,
Sure.
It just wasn't as prevalent, 8 years ago as it is today.
So it's by that, is it grown in popularity and
Harm reduction.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and like I said, there's good forms, and what I personally would not look at as like good forms. MAT treatment, I guess a lot of people classify that as harm reduction. I classify that as medical assisted treatment. I believe there's a difference there, where harm reduction would fall more into my belief more like, here's Suboxone, you don't need to do recovery.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of
Sure.
places out there that do that, right? I've seen and worked at places that would give Suboxone based on opioid crisis, so it's harm reduction based ones where they would give people Suboxone.
Mm-hmm.
You come in a week later, you piss and dirty still, you abused all your Suboxone, you ran out 3 days early, and they're saying, well, it's harm reduction, you have to give them that Suboxone now. So there's no accountability. So that's not treatment, that's not recovery, that's harm reduction. Where I would say the best form of accountability with it, you have to do it this way, you only get this amount. You have to go to a meeting every 7 days of the week to get this, get your refill. Like that's medical assisted treatment, right? So there is I think a difference there with it. So the people that I have seen do medical assisted treatment, so be on Suboxone, and also had a lot of accountability treatment programs. They had to get so my Vivitrol, I could only get Vivitrol if I showed up to outpatient. If I quit on the outpatient,
And you had to drop?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
3 times a week, had to pass them, couldn't be dirty.
That's how I could get the only way I could get the naltrexone is
So,
if I was dropping it outpatient.
I like that program. I believe in that style. I think that has really great success. I've seen success. The programs that are harm reduction based, like here's your Suboxone, no matter what, you'll get it. We got you. That's designed to keep that person alive. That's not treatment anymore. That's not recovery. That's just helping an individual stay alive till they get to treatment and recovery.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I like that. I'm wondering if I should ask the Adderall question. Because we could probably do a whole episode on that. But
Adderall question.
like, what are your? Well, let's fucking do it. What are your thoughts on like Adderall and Vyvanse for people in recovery?
So my disclaimer to all this right now.
Yeah, man.
Whatever you take by your I go by I do Narcotics Anonymous. They have pamphlets on stuff like this where it's like whatever's between you and your doctor is between you and your doctor.
Sure.
Right. As a program, we don't have a say in that. That's between you and your doctor. What are your intentions? Am I abusing that, or am I taking more? Do I actually feel like I need it, or do I take it because it makes me feel kind of good? It makes my day easier on
to thy own self be true.
So that's where your intentions have to be pure when you're taking these things. For me personally, my brain can't handle narcotics. Me and Eric, I think we were just talking about this last night, maybe.
Yep.
This is good. Then I'm glad
we're talking about tramadol, right? That's what's called tramadol. It's a non-narcotic. I don't think it's a narcotic.
What is tramadol?
I think it is considered.
It's a pain
changed.
medication. So when I had my surgery on my neck, they're trying to give me Vicodin and Percocets or all these hardcore pain medications. I told them no, I'm in recovery. I can't have that. So they gave me tramadol. It took me 3 days on tramadol. My brain it went straight back to addict thinking. I was obsessed over watching the clock.
When's your next
4 hours?
You
I
talked
could take
about
it.
that once with your shoulder.
After my shoulder, absolutely.
And then I panicked and flushed them all down the toilet because I was terrified. Adderall would do the same thing to my brain.
Really?
Right?
Yeah.
So really, because I already know my intentions. I can't put those type of stuff in my body. My brain, most addicts' brains, I want to say, all of our brains, doesn't know the difference between Adderall and meth.
Sure.
Right? It just knows this is a stimulant. It hits my dopamine receptors. It's firing. I like this. I want more.
Yeah.
That's just how our brains are designed by this disease. So that's where you got to be very careful. So if it is a medication that's like an Adderall, because I've seen people in recovery that take Adderall that need it, right?
Are they diagnosed ADHD by neurologists?
Well, I fucking hope so.
Yeah, right. That's my stance on it.
Yeah.
Is right. If you have if you're in, because it works differently on those brains than it does a non-ADHD brain.
And then you need to...
It coax you up if you're not ADHD. If you are, like my son, it fucking chills you the fuck out.
But if you're an addict, you also need to make sure you have accountability for that medication.
Sure.
Right.
Of course.
Somebody should be counting your pills. Somebody maybe should be holding on
So that's
to them,
important.
not just have them accessible to you. You should have one of those lock boxes with a timer. Like you got to make sure, because our brain, even though how many people do we know, Eric, with ADHD that really need Adderall or Vyvanse and that really helps them abuse methamphetamine?
Absolutely.
Most of them.
A lot.
Right.
Yep.
because that's what our brain goes for. You know what I mean? So if you do need it and it is helping you, one, always try non-narcotic routes first. See if there's any natural supplements or any type of non-habit forming, non-narcotic ADHD, because there's a lot of good ones out there nowadays. Try those first before you go to those. And if those don't work and you have to do Adderall or Vyvanse, have accountability, have some type of structure for that medication. Because when I'm left up to my own devices, I fuck shit up. So
I'll tell you. So last year, my doctor prescribed me Vyvanse for weight loss because it's been FDA approved for weight loss, and I took it, and probably I started. And I remember it was St. Patrick's Day of last year. I was taking it as prescribed, and then the up down was getting smaller. The window was getting smaller on that milligram I was on. So I took it. I went St. Patrick's Day with some friends. We went downtown to the parade, and then by the time I got home, I started like my brain. I was so aware of that come down. I was like, I can't do this shit no more. It is because I'm wanting another one, and my next is tomorrow. Like I'm like,
you're hyper focused.
Yeah, you start obsessing over it.
I was fucking almost pacing in my living room, and Ash got home, and I was like, hey, I gotta flush this Vyvanse. I can't. It is teetering. It is too fucking familiar.
Anything that makes us feel good and then stops.
Right.
Now we're like, our solution is take more of it now. That's just how our brain works.
I was like, I go, because what I want to do is just go take another one and be like, well, it's just 2 a day now, even though my doctor said
not a big deal. Right.
And I'm like, this is fucked up. And I was 10 years. I was 10 years clean, like sober, which thank God I was mindful enough to, but it did that to my brain. I was like, so I was fuck it, give me the Ozempic.
And that's a good example of
stop fucking judging me.
Like we really have. I tell clients it's like we have to accept that. Like,
I don't have a gym I can go to.
Yeah, you can use ours.
Oh,
on a waiver.
Edit that out.
And like we have to accept that we can't. We have a drug problem, like I was saying earlier, not just a meth, heroin, whatever it is. Anything that's a non-narcotic that's going to be a mind-altering substance to us, our brain will automatically latch on to and do that. When's my next one?
I was snorting blue Adderalls in college, and people want to abuse Adderall so they can stay up and study. I just was able to drink 40 beers instead of 25.
Never understood that one.
Right.
You guys take it to study. I guess that was the original plan.
I don't know, man.
And then once it entered the system, it was like, all right, no more studying.
I know so many people that wouldn't even register that they were one of us, but they're out there in the street buying Adderall illegally and taking the fuck out of it. I mean, remember it was your bachelor party in Vegas. The girls in the fucking elevator were like, "Did you bring your Adderall? Did you bring your Adderall?"
I don't know what you're talking about, Chris.
That was
happens there stays there, bud.
Oh, sorry. It was EDM.
It's somehow because of that medication like that is somehow, once again, I'm doing air quotes here, normal people rationalize it as it's not that bad. It's not meth.
Right.
So in their mind,
it.
it's not called methamphetamine, so it's completely different, and a doctor prescribed it, so I'm not doing anything wrong. It's but that's the disease.
They call it
the
rich
thinking.
white girl drug.
And there's also people out there that can take an Adderall
Sure.
and study and not touch it again for forever. You know what I mean?
But that's also not its intended fucking use, right?
Right.
It's not intended so you can go pass your SAT.
No.
And which I bring up, scary is there's kids fucking dying taking Adderall in high school, even as young as in high school, because it's laced with fentanyl.
Oh, see.
Or it's accidentally fentanyl, whatever.
Street pills are terrifying nowadays because, like, you hear people like getting Xanax off the street. It's fentanyl in it.
Right.
Because all like these dealers, they're making their own pills now with whatever the fuck they like. It's not like from a pharmacy anymore. Like, oh, I know a pill's sick because like back when I used opiates, I knew Percocets. Well, that's Percocet. I know what I'm getting. I know the milligram. I know it's good. Pills aren't even like that nowadays.
No.
You don't know what that pill really is. Because you always hear it too when they come out. Well, I trust my dealer. They're giving me Percocets. I know it is.
Yeah.
Then they take their drug test and it lights up like a Christmas tree. Like,
you trust.
He's still a drug dealer,
right.
So
yeah,
it's like
we've had people come through and then they're popping for xylazine.
Right.
So, and they didn't know that.
Explain what that is while we're doing an
It's
FAQ.
a horse tranquilizer in some form, and use it as a cutting agent, and it's going inside of the fentanyl that people are buying off the streets. And, just here at IRC, we've had at one point in time about 15 individuals came in, all walks of life, different substances. Might be an individual struggling with methamphetamine, another individual struggling with fentanyl. Had an individual that came in, was an alcoholic, but they smoked weed, that they bought off the street. And there was, I think it was 14 or 15 individuals, all of them popped for xylazine. So, especially the individual that was an alcoholic, just smoking weed occasionally.
Or doing like a little bit of cocaine, right? Because that's real common with alcoholics too. They're popping for, it ain't just cocaine. It's fentanyl, xylazine's on there. Don't trust drug dealers. That's the moral of that story. Like,
That's funny.
They're going to lie to you. They're just going to tell you what you want to hear.
My dealer on my board of directors.
I would recommend not.
I'll stick with my pastor and
but it's
doctor.
like what we've all heard when we were younger, when mom, dad, or whoever says, you don't know what they're putting
Grandma
in.
Alice.
Grandma Alice, And you're
Eric,
like, oh, Grandma.
You don't know what they're putting in it.
Absolutely. And
God,
you're
it fucking couldn't
so
be
true.
more
And
right.
now look where we're at. And you really don't. So it's a terrible thing. Going back to the Adderall, though, to thy own self be true.
Right.
So
But
nobody can tell you. It's just, as simply put, no one, everybody can have an opinion. But
Sure.
at the end of the day, I can't tell you, Chris, you're an alcoholic. You got to find that. So if you're taking this medication, and to thy own self be true. If it serves a purpose, it helps you. There's no ramifications, and you're not finding yourself watching the clock for the next dosage time or the proper time you're supposed to take it, then it may be working for you.
And then one thing that was told to me.
And to your point, though, sorry, Jacob, only you can answer that for yourself. So just like you said, if you're being honest with yourself, and you're to thy own self be true with this, and you can do it, then. But if you are lying to yourself, only you know that.
Right. And then one thing that was told to me when I started questioning if I was a drug addict or not was non-drug addicts don't question if they're a drug addict or not. Those are questions they ask themselves. So if you're asking yourself, am I an addict?
Right.
You might want to look into some help with that.
Sure.
Because it's from my understanding, that's a dead giveaway.
I think and then pat yourself on the back for fucking asking the question and being at that, because you're further along, step closer to changing your life.
Because you don't fix a problem till you acknowledge the problem.
Right.
So once you finally can accept that there's a problem, that's when you can start getting help. So.
Right.
So, okay, last question of the night. All right. And this is, and you can answer, you're an uncle, but as a parent, how old's your daughter?
9.
And Charlie's 11. And I bring this up because it was asked by a beautiful, beautiful gal, sent a text. But it's a good one, and we saw it at Family Day. We saw kids visiting what we presume to be their loved one that's here in treatment. Do you have honest conversations about this stuff with your daughter?
So my daughter's 9, so she's young.
Yeah.
But she knows I was a drug addict.
Okay.
She knows I'm in recovery.
No,
she knows what I do for a living. She doesn't know like her dad was shooting up heroin or nothing like that.
She doesn't listen to this?
No. God, I hope fucking not, dude. Her mom would murder me. But
Dad, I saw you on a short.
Yeah. But
what's boofing?
I'm fully open with my daughter. Like I was a drug addict.
Sure.
Not like because like when she was younger, because I've been clean since she was like 1. So like in the beginning, like Dad was sick at a period of time. Now he's healthy. Dad helps sick people get healthy again. That's what he does for her career. But now she's 9. She's not dumb. She hears music. Every song she listens to talk about drugs or addiction. She knows I'm a drug addict. I'm in recovery now, and I help other drug addicts.
Awesome.
And I believe in that because one, I tell clients like your kids are because our family programs for 12 and over. Okay. But like. And like a lot of them be like, well, my 12, they don't know nothing going on. They know way more.
Bullshit.
They know so much more.
I was just thinking about that about your 9-year-old and the music. Like, we don't even know the level of shit they actually do know.
Right, because they're way smarter than we give them credit for. But definitely, I'm open to her, but like, I don't give her the gritty details or like the horror sides of it. But yeah, I'm very open because one, I want her to know that because God forbid, one of my biggest fears is that she'll fall down that path too one day.
Of course,
she'll know that. It's not taboo to talk about in the household. Because I know, like, me growing up, like, talking about me being a drug addict to my parents was terrifying.
Right.
It's so taboo and it's not understood and just so scared of the reaction. I don't want that for her if that ever crosses her life. But, you know,
Yeah.
it is an open, honest conversation that we have in the house.
Awesome. I admire that. What do the nieces and nephews know about IRC?
They do, and we've the conversation has not came up as of yet. I think if I had it my way, it would have came up. You know, my oldest niece is 14. Would have came up. Yeah, I think.
Is that high school yet?
Close next
year. Oh,
so
boy.
I think the conversation, in my opinion, should be around 12 years of age. I think it's old enough, and I use that because my own experience. 12,
Sure.
13 is when smoking weed and drinking.
Right.
And I think having a conversation, I feel that they know, but they don't know the inner details.
Yeah. Well, and
You
it's
know.
different. I mean,
With a niece and nephew, yeah. 'cause-
to their parents and
Sure.
everybody thinks a little differently.
Sure.
Sure. So I get that. I know how
But I
close you
think-
are with them.
Sure. I think the conversation should take place as far as like what's out there. It's the real world, you know, and what
scary, man.
Yeah, and what path it leads you down. Because, you know, in my own lifetime, you know, like the DARE program and such forth. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I remember the officer bringing in like goggles, the beer goggles, and
Right.
I thought it was cool to put them on.
Try to run down a
You know,
road
The
path,
DARE
yeah.
officer at Whiteside came in and he smoked a fucking pack a day. He's like,
yeah.
fucking DARE bear was like goddamn
Yeah.
covered in marble red ash. But he was great.
Conversations I think should be had though, and
Yeah.
honesty's best approach.
And different tiers to it too. Like I used to do a group all the time for like with clients. I got to have them write a speech. So write a speech about addiction that you're telling the grade schoolers, high schoolers,
Oh, wow.
and college students. You know,
Okay.
so you can look at the differences, like how to explain it to your loved ones,
Yeah.
and what age group they are, right?
Sure.
Because like when my daughter's in high school, like she'll probably hear some more the gritty side of addiction, right? I don't want to call it the scared straight technique, but she should know what it can lead to, right?
Well, I mean, it's
And then being in the house, like with your kids, I think it's different than like a niece and nephew because my life is recovery. Eric, your
Right.
life is recovery.
Right.
So when somebody's in your house, how do you hide that from them?
Yeah,
you know,
you can't.
So,
You can't.
I've,
so she's gonna hear the phone call I'm having with Eric about
Right.
addiction and recovery. Like it's just gonna happen. So
Yeah.
might as well tell them, in my opinion, like what's in
Yeah.
your house. So.
Well, and I think it helps too when they realize, I would imagine, at once, not being a father yet, but I think if you have children and you share with them your story and now they see, you know, dad's normal.
Right.
Sure.
Like, you know, that normal people go down this path. People struggle, you know, that was a moment in my life where this took place and this is what I did about it and this is where I'm at now. So for your story, Jacob, you know, Annalise, she's probably too young to see when you were, you know, in active addiction and remember that. So right now, your dad, that's all she knows.
Right.
Is like, well, dad's no different than anybody else. Little does she know that he's
We'll tell
very
her.
much different than everybody else.
But also, it's a good it's a stigma breaker as
Sure,
well because now the
sure.
next generation,
Yes.
they're not looking at addicts as that homeless,
Yeah,
whatever. You know,
yeah.
like when I looked
Pushing a
at
grocery
addicts,
cart under a bridge.
yeah, because that's what an addict
Yeah.
was with me growing up. Like that's
Right,
what you
right,
pictured
right.
in your head. Now, when my daughter hears about addicts, she's going to picture her dad.
Absolutely.
God,
And-
no, God willing, I'm still going to be successful and doing
Sure.
very well in my recovery when she's older, and that's what she's going to look at as an addict.
Sure.
Just another human that needs
Yep.
love and support, right? So,
I've shared two stories with in regards to my son, and the first one is who's been here. He's shot hoops in the gym. He knows what we do. He's 11. So he was our first foster placement. He came into our care in April of 2017. I got sober in 2014, and he was 3.5. And through the foster care system, he came in. His bio parents were struggling with addiction and self-medication, and that's why he went into state custody, and we got him, and reunification is always the first plan in the foster system, and it did not work out for either bio parent. The disease was too powerful, and here I am 3, 4, 5 years sober, stuck in a real protect Charlie and be very, also have compassion for both bio mom and bio dad, because I've been there and believe in second chances, and
Sure.
I know that recovery is possible, and so you root for it. All the while, it's because of that system that we did that it was the first time I learned, and learned in a fury, that you are human beings. We can carry two opposing emotions at the same time, sometimes more than two, that are just, we do it all the time. We just don't know it's happening, like being happy and sad at the exact same time, and it twists you like a fucking pretzel. So that was that whole experience. But I bring that up because fast forward to January of 2020, to the adoption day, when reunification didn't work out, and Ashley and I had the privilege of adopting Charlie, they redo his whole birth certificate. And I don't know if I've shared it on a podcast or not, but it came in the mail a couple weeks after the adoption, and we're on the birth certificate as if we gave birth to Charlie. And his birthday is October 1st, 2013. And October 1st, 2013, I was at rock fucking bottom.
Yeah.
And it was so humbling to read my name as a parent as he was born. I was no better than bio mom or bio dad. I just, and here I'm on a
Birth certificate.
it was fucking crazy. Like,
irony with it.
You know what I mean? And it's still, God, it gets me fucked up, right? And thinking about it, but and I hope, pray every day for mom and dad to do well and hopefully overcome some things. And so I bring that story because that's so fucking humbling, and it leads me to what I've learned. I almost think all parents should go to these classes you have to go to be trained. They train, quote unquote, to be a foster parent, because you learn a lot about kids and the shit they know and we don't think they know.
Sure.
And how to be, especially regarding those situations, like age appropriate honesty. To your point, honesty is always the best policy.
Yeah.
To what Jacob was saying earlier, being honest. She doesn't know all the ugliness of it yet because she's 9, but age appropriate honesty. Mm-hmm. If we're not telling these kids the truth about what's happening in their lives, whether it's this real stuff we're talking about or stiff shit they're facing at school, if we're not telling them the truth, they're going to make it up in their head, and they're going to. So if they have questions and we don't answer them for them, they're going to make up their own answers.
Right.
And 99 times out of 100, their answers are going to be way fucking worse than what the truth is. So with that, I think by default, not because I'm some wise one, we've always had these honest conversations with Charlie, and I've been very honest with why mom has a glass of wine or two and I don't, and why I don't drink, and when we go out, and he knows what being sober is. And then now Charlie, if you smoke a cigarette around him, he's gonna fucking shame you. He's a real ball breaker for cigarette. Ask Jack Hoff about that. A buddy of mine, he lit up a cigarette at a NASCAR race, and Charlie fucking lit him up. You're gonna die from that. Do you know that you're gonna die from that? I mean, you fucking grilled him. But so he and God, I hope it sticks, because obviously genetically, he's influenced by his adoptive father that has some impulse control issues. So you worry every day. So that honesty with him, the honesty you have, and your belief in it, it's so much better to be honest about this stuff earlier, because they're answering these fucking questions in their head. That was probably the biggest takeaway from going to these classes to get your license, which was 3 hours a week for 9 to 10 weeks. You went to, it was called STARS class, and they taught you a lot about what goes on in a kid's mind with trauma, how they act outside of it, and most of it's through parents that can't get sober, and it's so they already are fucking knowing, and then kids are talking at school. We were, and it's I think a real important conversation to have with kiddos, especially when you hear about high schoolers dropping dead because they fucking took an Adderall from a friend. Like, that shouldn't be that stupid mistake shouldn't be killing these kids, and that's probably the biggest fear as a parent that I have. So hopefully the honesty and all that sticks.
Yeah.
Good stuff, huh?
Yeah, good questions.
Anything else, you guys?
No, this time change is kicking my ass.
You're fucking
Yeah.
yawning.
Fucking
Was I putting you
tired.
to sleep over there?
yeah.
I was digging deep with that story there, baby. I was fucking talking about my boy. And
It was beautiful. Beautiful.
God damn, fucking chirping. E, thanks for coming on.
You got it, buddy.
You got some TPS reports to look over tonight?
Yeah, I still got some work to do.
Somebody's got to fix the plumbing. I mean, he
Yeah.
does it all here.
Got to.
The,
Still some administrative work. Wednesdays are hump day for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, appreciate you.
Appreciate you coming on or having me on.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Chris.
What do you think of the studio? We're gonna get an uplift soon.
I like
Can you
it.
approve that budget?
That's what I'm looking over tonight.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate the invite and having me on, fellas.
Thanks for being here. Don't forget your gummy bears. Jacob, thanks for staying late. Jeff, we'll see you next week. And if you guys have any questions that we didn't hit, email us, shoot us a text, Facebook, whatever the fucking platform is. Hit us up. I want to do this more often. There's a lot of, stigma to kill, and sometimes we think it's obvious, and it's certainly anything but. So
We have this in like the rotation.
yeah, man. So we'll be filling out NCAA brackets soon. Maybe do an NCAA bracket show in the Illini National Champions. Yeah, right. But shoot us notes and follow us, like us, subscribe. It helps spread the message. It's not just to give us hand jobs. It's to help spread that message of hope, right, E?
You got it.
What are you
buddy.
fucking smirking at? Sometimes I just say stupid shit, don't I?
It's all right. We love
All right.
you. Keep coming back.
You got it. Love everyone. And as always, let us pray.
If you're struggling or know someone that is, please have them check out our podcast and reach out to Chris or me. We want to listen, and we're super eager to help. Our music is Anti-Hero by McCall and Gentle Waters by Wild Wonder. For more information, visit pondoffsanonymous.com. Find us on Facebook and Instagram.